Hello everyone, my name is Danit Gal and I'm a technology advisor working on digital cooperation at the United Nations. In our office, I lead the work on AI and other frontier technologies. I would like to thank the Leverhulme Centre Forum for having me today, as well as the Beijing Academy of AI and the Ministry of Science and Technology for inviting me to speak with you. Today is the Jewish New Year Eve, and I would like to wish you a very happy year. I know that 2020 has been very difficult on us all, but I think that we can work together towards a better year ahead. Today I'll be speaking to you about AI and sustainable cities, a view from the United Nations. I will be covering these four areas. First, we will try to understand what AI and sustainable development are. Then we're going to survey UN work on AI and sustainable development. Then we're going to look at some of the blind spots in current discussions and end up with conclusions. So what is sustainable development and how does that relate to AI? Sustainable development has been defined by the Oxford Reference Dictionary as community and economic development in terms of meeting the needs of present generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The Cambridge Dictionary defined it as causing little to no damage to the environment and therefore able to continue for a long time, therefore sustain. Now, when we think about smart cities, we often think about the image to the left, this hyper-connected metropolitan area where the technologies work together in symbiosis to manage the city. However, we're starting to move a bit more towards the photo on the right, sustainable smart cities. Cities that benefit from all this technological progress, specifically AI, but also are livable, the kind of city that you would want to move into and have your children in. What are some of the UN work on AI and sustainable development? Well, the obvious first thing is Sustainable Development Goal number 11 on sustainable cities and communities. You see, cities and metropolitan areas are powerhouses of economic growth. They contribute almost 60% of global GDP. However, at the same time, they also account for about 70% of global carbon emissions, and they also account for 60% of resource use. So with the significant benefit also come significant costs. Cities are also at the front line of coping with the pandemic and its lasting impacts. Across the globe, the COVID-19 pandemic is threatening cities and communities, endangering not only public health, but also the economy and the fabric of society that is a part of this urbanization trend. In particular, UN Habitat is working for a better urban future, and they note that to contribute effectively to urban sustainability, frontier technologies and innovations need to be applied appropriately to ensure that the prosperity they bring is shared among citizens, cities, and regions. So UN Habitat joined forces with the China Academy of Urban Planning and Design in 2019 to create the AI for City, an initiative for urban innovation and sustainable communities. This initiative is aiming to create a global city cooperation alliance that would bring together the different smart cities projects to think about sustainability and making sure that we're really working to create cities that are not just futuristic, but that we would also want to have our future in. Finally, there is the United for Smart Sustainable Cities, and they define smart sustainable cities as an innovative city that uses information and communication technologies and other means to improve quality of life, efficiency of urban operation and services, and competitiveness. At the same time, they want to ensure that it meets the needs of present and future generations with respect for economic, social, environmental, and cultural aspects. The work that the UN is doing is only getting started. There's a lot that needs to be done on understanding how we can best apply AI to sustainable development. The United for Smart Sustainable Cities is just such one example of global cooperation on understanding how AI can better serve sustainable urban development. What are some of the blind spots in the current discussions? When we think about how to use AI for sustainable development, there are a lot of things that we don't really see, because oftentimes AI is thought to be this, silver bullet solution that we could just apply to urban development, plug some sustainability in, and that's the solution. However, that is not really the case. So here are some of the problems with AI. AI is not a silver bullet for smart sustainability. Although it's a remarkable development tool, it's not enough for sustainable urban development. You see, smart sustainability requires human, AI, and environment cooperation. These three entities have to work together in harmony to make sure that we can actually create a city that serves humans, best utilizes AI, and also helps the environment flourish. Number two, AI itself is not a sustainable technology. So when we talk about AI for sustainable development, we need to take that into account. Researchers at OpenAI and DeepMind say that computing power required for AI landmarks, like defeating humans at Go, increased 3,000 times from 2012 to 2018. This is a significant strain on our environmental resources and on the energy that these machines consume. Number three, AI and bias in urban development. Trained on biased data, AI amplifies existing biases. And using AI for urban development can exacerbate these biases, making the design inherently unsustainable. Oftentimes, when we design cities, we design them in neighborhoods. And the neighborhoods that have better benefits or better projects tend to enjoy a more sustainable environment. As a result of that, an AI that trains on the data that exists within the city may only prioritize these areas and neighborhoods that are already doing really well, leaving these kind of poor neighborhoods that are in need of urgent development to fend for themselves. So we need to make sure that these biases don't actually undermine urban development. Finally, what are some of the conclusions that we can take with us into the discussion in the forum today? 1. Using AI holds great promise and peril for sustainable development. In order to ensure that we maximize benefit from using the technology, we must first understand how it can promote or undermine sustainable development. Applying AI to urban sustainable development is a wonderful idea. It can certainly amplify a lot of the things that we do. But unknowingly, it could also undermine a lot of the projects that we're doing, for example, talking about the biases before. Number 2, optimizing for sustainability is optimizing for development. If there is anything COVID-19 has taught us, is that nature is a force to be reckoned with. To continue developing, humanity needs to rethink sustainability. We need to make sure that we don't just develop, that we develop in a sustainable way. That's true for environment, that's true for cities, and that's also true for the AI itself. That leads us to conclusion number 3. Making AI development and use sustainable is a common goal. Global cooperation on AI is on the rise, and working in the UN, I can tell you that we have an incredible amount of member states, companies, universities, and civil society organizations, as well as other UN entities, coming together to think about how we can best develop, use, and regulate AI to make sure that it benefits us and future generations. A lot of us are starting to think about sustainable AI, trying to understand how AI impacts the environment. What are some ecological ways that we can develop and use AI, and how AI can help us contend with the threats of climate change? Using AI for sustainability can be a great way to move forward, because understanding how AI contributes to sustainability can also help us understand how to make AI itself more sustainable. So I urge you to think about these 3 conclusions and take them with you on the discussion. If you're applying AI to sustainable urban development, please make sure that you're doing it in a sustainable way. Thank you very much.